Ace Combat Infinity, one of the most divisive titles in the series and a difficult one to approach from a retrospective angle. Reason being, this game is unplayable. Literally, as in you can't get past the title screen. Hell, it's been unplayable for the past roughly 7.5 years as of this video. Infinity was an online-only free-to-play game that was released in May 2014 and lasted until March 31st, 2018. Ever since then, nobody has been able to proceed beyond the title screen. I can't play this game nowadays to make a retrospective on it, but I'm also not going to ignore it. So, fair warning, this video isn't going to be a retrospective. Rather, this is going to be more of a classic commentary style of video that'll hopefully have a flow to it. I can't promise that it'll have a flow, but I'm gonna do my best. Let's get the elephant in the room addressed. How come Infinity hasn't been revived? I thought that same thing. So I took to Reddit and asked, what would it take to revive Infinity? The TLDR is that when it comes to reviving a game's online component, a big part of that process is reverse engineering the servers. Shout out to Cloaked Enigma on Reddit for providing an in-depth response. I'll be echoing what they said in their reply here. Reverse engineered servers are crucial because they are what trick the game into thinking it's a legit server and therefore allow people to access the multiplayer. Not all multiplayer servers are created equal though, which is why taking note of a particular game's servers is crucial. If you have a particular video game's online server blueprint, that serves as the foundation for the people looking to reverse engineer them. This was never done for Infinity. Nobody knows the blueprint for how the game's servers worked. Therefore, that drastically increases the complexity of trying to reverse engineer them. In theory, if someone wanted to go on a multi-year trial and error process, it could be done. Someone could essentially brute force the equation that is Infinity servers and get it working. But given how much time and effort it would take, how much someone would be banging their head against the wall during this time, it just wouldn't be worth it. Even I, someone who would love for Infinity to return, wouldn't partake in that endeavor. Granted, partaking in that endeavor would require me to be smart with computers and let alone have the patience that would be needed for this. And, bold of you to assume I'm smart. And even if Infinity got revived, there is a discussion to be had about the game's microtransactions. This raises the question of whether a revival project of Infinity would even last. It's entirely possible that Bandai Namco would send a cease and desist due to potential lost income. Part of me thinks they wouldn't, because if they went through with killing the game off entirely, then they wouldn't mind because Infinity hasn't been part of their financial strategy for years. In comparison to something like Call of Duty, because you can still buy and play games like Advanced Warfare and Black Ops 3, Activision is still taking those older games into consideration for their financial strategy, even if they don't play a massive part in it nowadays. So, with a revival project of this game looking unlikely, the best we can do is to remember the game and talk about it, which brings me to my experience with Infinity. I was a teenager at the time, having played Ace Combat 6 and unfortunately Assault Horizon. Given that Infinity was a PlayStation 3 exclusive and I would only ever get a chance to play it whenever I would see my dad on the weekends, I didn't get a whole lot of playtime. It also didn't help that I was on Team Xbox when it came to the Xbox 360 versus PlayStation 3 debate, and there was a 360 at my dad's house too, which reduced my playtime even more since 9 times out of 10 I'd go with the Xbox. But from the little bit of this game that I did play, from what I remember at least, it was fun. Looking back on it, I have to say, I love just how deep the progression system was. You would need to research and level up each of the aircraft and special weapons. Each of the named aces in the game counted as their own aircraft to research and level up. The part system was included here as well. You'd have the emergency sorties against the super weapons from previous games, the Aigion, the Soul, Stonehenge, and more. Emergency air, ground, and naval strike missions were included as well, tasking you with fighting against a massive enemy force. The game was primarily PvE, but there was also some PvP stuff like the Naval Team Deathmatch mode, where you had to destroy the enemy's fleet while protecting your own. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows with Infinity though. The game had a mixed reception for a number of reasons. The real-world setting, the focus on multiplayer instead of single player, and the microtransactions were a few reasons why people may not have liked this game. Focusing on that last point for a little bit, as I mentioned at the beginning, Infinity was a free-to-play game. This meant that microtransactions were everywhere. I don't remember them ever being an issue aside from the fuel system, but my brain could be misremembering. It is also worth noting that at the time I didn't have to worry about money, being a teenager back then, so I didn't have to account for something like an Ace Combat Infinity budget or anything like that. I do remember the fuel system being a big pain in the ass though. You had your active fuel and your reserve fuel. Your active fuel was your freebie games, 3 rounds on the house. After those 3, you would need to use up your reserve fuel or just wait it out / pay up for more. And if my memory serves me right, it took 4 hours for 1 active fuel slot to be refilled. From what I remember, this was a big issue during the first half of Infinity's life cycle because it made the game pay to play. Not pay to win, pay to play. Luckily, reserve fuel became gradually easier to accumulate outside of straight up paying for more through things like challenges. Once the greediness of the fuel system was dialed back, Infinity turned out to be a very competent and fun arcade flight action game. When I think of what I want Ace Combat 8's multiplayer to be like, Infinity is what I envision. Well, aside from the microtransactions. The vast progression system, all the iconic super weapon fights, being able to fly as protagonists as well as antagonist aces, things like that. Especially after the bare bones multiplayer we got with Ace Combat 7. Granted, Ace Combat 7 went through some intense development hell, so there's a bit more to it than just, oh, the devs couldn't be bothered. And to be fair, I'll always envision Ace Combat as a single player series first, and that's where I think the majority of the development budget and time should go. But I also really want there to be substantial multiplayer content too, especially PvE. Come to think of it, it's so dumb that Infinity single player was tied to an online connection. Yeah, Infinity single player was short, consisting of only 8 missions, but I'd love to replay it again, man. It was essentially Ace Combat greatest hits. You got to fight Stonehenge, the Igaion, and fight over B7R as part of the campaign. The campaign served as an extended tutorial for how the main PvE mode worked. A lobby of 8 would be split into 2 teams of 4. Both teams were ultimately aiming for the same goal, but whichever team had a higher score would get a bonus to their credits, research progress, etc. And that about does it for me when it comes to Infinity. I can't think of anything else to talk about, really. Oh, wait, actually, one more thing. Infinity gave us a kick-ass remix of Blue Skies, easily the best track in the entire game. Alright, that should do it for real now. I'm probably missing some things though, which is why I want to invite you to join the discussion. I'd love to hear about your experience with Infinity if you got the chance to play it. Even though we can't play the game anymore nowadays, we can ensure it lives on in some form by talking about it. Man, you know what I just realized? I'm almost done with this retrospective series. Ace Combat 7 is the last entry, and then the retrospective series will be done. As a heads up, the Ace Combat 7 retrospective won't be coming out until sometime in December. I figure that'll be a good way to end the year. I'm still gonna be posting videos in the meantime though, don't worry. Alright then, that'll do it. Stay safe, stay healthy, and peace out everyone.